connect with them a little bit and just find out what's holding them back and the habits. Do you know a guy named Douglas Conant in your travels of hearing positive people?
I heard you mention that name before, and I don't know them, I don't think.
So when I Googled habits to be prepared for the show, I came across this man, and he found that his last name is Conant, Conant, Conant Leadership. And there's an article that I picked up, it's 32 quotes about the power of habits, exactly what you and I are talking about, and it was subtitled Grow or Die. And so I encourage people to go to that. But let me just give you a quick highlight, and then it'll take us to the next part of our thinking. This guy is incredibly successful, but he's incredibly caring about people. Let me tell you how successful this guy was. He was the president of Nabisco Foods at one time. He was the president of the CEO of Campbell's Soup Company. He was the chairman of Avon Products. And there's a whole list of companies that he has a brilliant career. But he started this leadership company, Conant Leadership. And so I picked up a great deal of comments that he put out. But I'm going to give you one that I think is a little personal here. There's an article that I picked up from another person. But, you're a basketball player. And just talking about positive habits, I'm not going to go into this other article. I'm kind of mixing apples and oranges here. But I had to give you.
I like fruit.
Yeah, very good. So in this particular article, this guy's talking about positive habits and negative habits. I apologize to the listeners for going into Mr. Conant, Doug Conant, but I'll come right back to him. But this was another gentleman that I read named David Mathis, Mathis. And he says, habits, we think about habits generally as nasty little things. You got to break that habit, quit doing that irritating thing, quit biting your lip, knock out your smoking and your drinking, get rid of your drugs. Those are habits. But he also talks about how they can save your life and how good habits are, you got to look both ways before you cross the street. You teach your little kids a habit. So there's a lot of really good habits. And that's what we're trying to teach people right now is how you develop good habits will give you a better life. And here's the thing he said. He wanted you to get in the habit of turning to the Lord. And this was a faith-based article, how your habits show and shape your heart. It's about getting in the habit of giving it up to the Lord, okay? So I'm not going to teach that article today, but he says, habits make Stephen Curry, the NBA's best shooter, Mike Trout, baseball's best hitter, Jordan Spieth, the world's most promising young golfer. Habits keeps a NASCAR driver from losing control and going airborne when he's nudged going into turn 3 at Daytona. The point is, Lefford, you're a good basketball player. I mean, you're going to play it down, but, you like to play basketball. And you didn't develop whatever that jump shot that you got from the corner is by just shooting it 2 or 3 times and believing that you can make it anytime you want without practicing and developing the habit. To finish off the article about Donald Conant real quick, this guy is amazing, and his articles are something. And you've already covered the very last one they brought up was the one you did from Mahatma Gandhi about your beliefs become your thoughts and so forth, ultimately your destiny. But you mentioned the chains that hold us back and so hard to break. I got 2 here that I want to tell you that are right what you said. Horace Mann's considered to be one of the greatest educators ever in America. I mean, Horace Mann was the guy way back in the beginning of the century, I guess, the 20th century, not the 21st century. Habit is a cable. Habit is a cable. We weave a thread of it each day. And at last, we cannot break it. Okay, that sort of talks about how hard it is to break it. Now, Samuel Johnson, oh my gosh, Samuel Johnson goes back to, I believe, the late 1700s or the mid 1700s. He did the dictionary, I think. He was the first real dictionary, Samuel Johnson. Here's his. The chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. You like that one? So these are really good. I mean, there's so much here about developing good habits and how tough they are to change once you get them. But I just wanted to catch up with you on that. And, oh my gosh, I got to give you this last one. Last one, please. This is kind of the theme of today's show. I mean, we got a lot of time. We do another show on it if we get too wrapped up in it. The difference between an amateur and a professional is in their habits. An amateur has amateur habits. A professional has professional habits. We can never free ourselves from habit, but we can replace bad habits with good ones. So I'm going to give it back to you, Lefford. I want you to try through your own lessons in life, any way you want to communicate, because you're a communicator. I want us to be looking at people that are down in a, we'll just call it, for the lack of a better word, they haven't reached success much in their life. They're kind of at a lower place in their own self-esteem, perhaps, whatever the reason. They haven't developed the trust of other people, because I said that in the title of our show. If people don't trust you, we need other people. We are not no man is an island. We need other people. And so, you've got massive amounts of lifetime training and reading and wisdom that you've developed on this particular subject. So let's hope that for the rest of this conversation, you can help people that haven't figured something out yet decide that they're going to start working on developing good habits and getting freed up the bondage of their life from their bad habits. So thank you very much.
Well, one of the things, Steve, that a lot of people do is that they don't take a look at their habits. They don't take a look at what they're actually doing. And I think sometimes we have to stop and say, how is what I'm doing serving me?
Yeah.
How is what I'm doing serving me? Is it serving me well, or is it not serving me very well? And it's really easy for somebody to say, hey, break that habit. I don't really think you break a habit. I think you replace one habit with another habit. If you have a habit that's not serving you, take a look at it and say, what can I replace that habit with? If you're a smoker, I'm not a smoker, but if you're a smoker, you're not going to break the smoking habit. You can replace that habit. Whatever that reward, I was talking about this Duhigg thing about there's a cue, then there's a routine, and then there's a reward. So if there's a cue, you need something in your mouth. You need to feel a certain way. Then you start practicing this routine. Instead of pulling that cigarette out, you pull out a carrot. Instead of pulling that cigarette out, you go for a run or a walk or a swim. And then you get that same reward. So the reality is all of us have habits. Habits are going to be there. If it were not for habits, we would not be alive. You talked about the whole left, right, right? When I say left, right, left, you go, before you cross the street, you look to the left, you look to the right, you look to the left. That's a good habit. Would you believe me if I told you one of the people that were cops when I was in England died because of that habit? This was the deal. I don't know if you know this, but in England, instead of driving on the left side of the road, they drive on the right.
Oh, no.
So an airman new to the base in England, been there for less than a week.
Oh, no.
He gets ready to cross a road. He looks to the left, looks to the right, looks to the left, tuck off, struck by a car and killed. Because a habit, doing the same thing over and over in the wrong environment, can cause you to lose your life. So, go ahead.
No, that's a pretty powerful illustration of why you need to develop good habits, but be careful that the habit that you've developed is what you need at the time.
Is appropriate for the situation and where you are.
Yeah. Wow. Because you could be a guy that is in the habit of working hard to feed your family. But if your family needs you for something very important where there's something other than outside of what you normally do with your day, you've got to be able to modify your behavior in order to meet the needs of those that you care about, instead of giving an excuse that, well, you're going to have to figure that on your own because I got another assignment in front of you. Oh, my gosh.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. That's what it is. It's like my habit is working to pay the bills and take care of my family. Sometimes they need you to pay the bills. There's a need there.
Yep.
But if that habit is so strong that sometimes your significant other needs you, if your child needs you, they need a father. They don't necessarily need a provider. And so that good habit can be deadly to your relationships.
Yeah. Absolutely
And so,
true.
but it's the same thing. If you like some of the people that I used to work with and you work with now are the incarcerated, the returning citizen. The things that they needed to do in penitentiary, in corrections, won't serve them well or won't often serve them well when they get out. Right? If you always have to protect yourself, if you bring that protection into an environment where you don't need to protect yourself, that habit can break you.
Well, not trusting people also. That's one of the worst things about prison life is what you just said is exactly true. And a lot of people learn to not trust anybody. And you've got to learn how to trust people. And just to tell you this, I got a very, very close friend, and his name is Steve Forbes, Master's Touch Barber School of Excellence. And that's why I started my foundation, Right Thinking Foundation. He was at the church. I was doing a testimony in the church to have the church pray for me because the bank was, everybody in this bank ended up going to jail. They were coming at me calling a loan they shouldn't have called. I was asking for prayer because I didn't want to lose my house. And he came up to me and says, "Man, I didn't know you were a business guy. Can you help us with our business?" Well, Steve and Fred, his partner, came out to their barber shop, and first thing he says, "Can you get us into prisons and rehab centers?" I said, "What you mean, Willis? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, that's where we learn to cut, and we want to be here for those people that are coming out of prison and have a hard time." Well, I interviewed him a year ago this past Christmas, and we did a show called "Stay Between the Lines." You got to stay between the lines. That's what it was called. And he said something on that show. He said, though, that he needed the incarceration time in his life because he had to be reprogrammed. And he said that the programming that they made him go through was necessary in his life. They told him when to wake up in the morning. They told him when to eat. They told him when to go to the bathroom. They told him when to go to this, whatever. But a lot of people don't have any good habits and they don't have discipline. So I agree with everything you're saying, but I'm telling you, though, that's part of habits is developing good habits. And he called it programming. And he carried that out.
It is programming. It's programming and discernment. Because if you continue to repeat something, that's what I was talking about, Steve, that rut. To me, a habit is nothing but a behavior that you continuously do until you repeat it over and over and over until that becomes who you are and what you're about. And it can be positive or negative. It could be exercise routine, positive habit, but you can overdo it. Saving, positive habit, but you can overdo it. Eating is one of those things that we have to eat. That's survival. But we get into a habit of eating sweets and eating too much or being sedentary. We need to rest, but you could get into a bad habit of doing any of that stuff. So as I said, you got to have discernment and you got to take a look at what you're doing and how it serves you. And I think sometimes we forget that you could do something good and then it can end up bad. And people say, how in the world could that happen? You can do something good and it can end up being bad if you overdo it. You got a question.
No, I'm in agreement with what you said. It's not a question, it's a comment. This one is very basic, but a lot of people in a relationship, they end up, one person becomes far too dependent and needy on the other person. And they get hurt because they just want to be there to love on them and be around them and everything, but they end up smothering them. And they haven't learned. They get in the habit of thinking that it might be a different direction that I'm speaking of here, but that was a good thing the person wants to do for their partner. But the partner has to say, I appreciate what you're doing, but I need a little space. I mean, a lot of relationships end in that happening. I need some space. You're smothering me. So that might be going into some other thought, but it's a good habit to turn bad, a good thing.
Yeah, it because there are a lot of times I notice this, parents helping their children, doing their work for them, doing their job for them. It would sound like a funny joke, but it wasn't a joke. This is actually kind of true. Imagine you're a parent and at 5 months, your kid can't walk, so you carry him. 6 months, the kid can't walk, you carry him. 8 months, the kid can't walk, you carry him. 18 months, the kid can't